Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Thursday, September 25th, just about 7 o'clock at night. And this is our daily recap video for our Ulti weekly paying funds. I've combined them again, LFGY along with Ulti and SLTY. Still got this sore throat and losing my voice, so just trying to get through them quickly and get done. So we're covering Ulti, the YieldMax's Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, SLTY, YieldMax's Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund, and LFGY, YieldMax's Crypto Industry Option Income Fund. Reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1. I let you know when videos are premiering. I also recap or repost announcements on distributions, everything like that. Before we get into it, I wanted to shout out a couple people and say some thank yous. So I did start, opened up like membership. I just selected like a really cheap one, just if you want to support the channel. And the first members are Cool Pikachu, Toxic J 2025, and Grumpy Toad. If you ever watch the live chat, they're probably in every single video's live chat. So thank you guys. And they get cool stickers that they get to post in the chat. Grumpy likes to do that a lot. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look. Big picture, how things went today. It was ugly, right? Ulti 544 is where it closed today, being the day where the distribution comes out of the share price along with markets moving down. Did not work out real well, so we quickly dropped from like 560s down to 540s, but it's okay. We just know that a portion of that is just because money's getting put in our pockets. We'll take a look at all the underlyings on the spreadsheets and see how they performed individually. We'll highlight which ones were the biggest movers and how their options are looking. LFGY is another one, down 3+%. So all of crypto had a bad day, as you can see. And then finally, SLTY. If everything's going to go down, then SLTY's going to have a good day. They were up 1.17% on the day. So that's, I believe that makes 3 days in a row going up. So that's good for those of you who have SLTY. I have Ulti and LFGY. I do not have SLTY. All right, after 5:30, we are able to download the trades for the day. Not a ton, but it wasn't small either. 334 to 381, so what's that? 47 trades on Ulti. 383 to 441. What's that? 58 trades for SLTY, and then LFGY 446 to 479. 33 trades. So not the worst day, but not the easiest either. We'll start with Ulti. That's everybody's favorite and the most popular. So for starters, as far as shares-wise, they just bought some more shares of underlyings that they already hold, Bitmine Immersion Technology and Quantum Computing. Not a whole lot of money. Surprising to see purchases this small. And then we just get into it's Thursday, so with the markets being down, they're going to close and roll a lot of positions out the next week. Bullish being the first, which resulted in a credit of $2.2 million. Bitmine Immersion, this is just adding to the collar strategy since we bought more shares. That brought in $3,500. CoreWeave, one of the few, still up beyond their strike price, so closing those and rolling them to next week resulted in a $4.8 million debit. Closing and rolling HIMS and HERS to next week was a $1.5 million credit. It's already been rolled to next week for MicroStrategy. They just adjusted the put down closer to the money. That collected $427,000. Quantum Computing, so they're rolling to next week along with selling some more of the collar strategy on those new shares we talked about. Overall $1 million credit. New Scale Power, this is a big one, brought in $11.6 million on that closeout and roll. Those protective puts have a lot to do with it. So we only had to pay about $345,000 to close out to buy back those calls, and when we sold those protective puts, they brought in over $10 million. Then we went ahead and sold next week's strikes, but That's the beauty of those protective puts. Soundhound brought in 1.5 million. Again, your puts are bringing in more money than the cost to close out those calls. I'm sure if we scrolled back up, it was going to be the case with all of these. Symbiotic, this has already been rolled to next week, so they were closing the higher strike price calls and dropping them closer to the money, bringing in $458,000. Unity Software is a roll to next week. Here we go. It cost $556,000 to close them out, and we collected $2.1 million selling those protective puts, along with another $3 million selling next week's calls. Had to buy some more puts. $3.4 million credit, and finally Upstart, $4.1 million credit. And again, look, we're paying $41,000 to close out the calls and collecting almost $3.5 million selling those puts. And then we just start our new strategy for next week. So $4.1 million overall resulted in back-to-back $21 million credit days on our option trading. So we are in the positive as far as options trading is concerned, but it doesn't feel great because in order for that to happen, your shares got to drop. So they were down 75 million. Definitely not the worst day we've ever had, not by a long shot, but it's a decrease in the value of the shares themselves. That's not the overall change in market value because every single option changed in its closing price and value. We just don't have time to update every single option. So when we go through and take a look at how things performed, Affirm was down 4.4%. Calls already rolled to next week, 11.6, 12.9% out of the money. They also sold puts 5% out of the money. Bullish was the big loser, down over 8.5%. They took the win on those further out of the money calls. They still have 68s that are about 10% out of the money expiring tomorrow. Bitmine Immersion down almost 5%. They've already been rolled the next week, 16.5% out of the money. And I forgot to mention Bullish is a lower percentage, not the lowest, but it's below average. So that 8.5% drop dropped us $9 million, but it's not nearly as bad as if it would have been, one of the bigger funds on the same side. Open Door being the highest gainer for the day, up over 10%, is even smaller percentage. So that only resulted in a $7 million increase. Coinbase was down 4.69%. Options already rolled the next week, 9% out of the money. Core Weave down 5%. So let's see. Core Weave. Oof, they paid $9.68 to close them. So Core Weave probably started the day up and then dropped. Yeah, that's just bad luck. So obviously they were in the money. Looked like they were spiking even further in the money, so they paid a ton of money to close them out, only for them to drop all the way down to only 1% in the money. So they would have been much, much cheaper, but what can you do? Calls already rolled the next week are 7% out of the money. There's $750 million in government obligation funds, and we're in the negatives as far as cash and other because of setting aside the money to pay out tomorrow's distribution. Got to find my spot. Figma was down about 1.5%. Already rolled the next week. They're 6.6% out of the money. First Solar up 1.7%. Took these 220 calls into the money by 1.3%. With this drop, we've got those 4 put spreads. Galaxy's put spread has now gone in the money by almost 9%. Hims and Hers was up 3% today. Surprising that they closed the deeper in the money, or the closer to the money calls as opposed to the further out of the money. Let's double check to make sure I didn't make a mistake there. They did. Not sure why they did that, but in any case, they've been rolled the next week. They still have 58s expiring tomorrow with 5.6% out of the money, and calls that have already been rolled the next week, 3.8% out of the money. Robinhood down 3.27%. Calls expiring tomorrow are 3.5% and 3.2% out of the money. Lululemon, here's another one of those put spreads with no shares owned. They dropped into the money by 4.6%. MP Materials Corp was up 8.2%, so they had a good day at least. Still out of the money by 2.4% on this week's calls, and in the money now on next week's calls, 2.75%. Strategy was down almost 7% today. They had already been rolled to next week, but they adjusted those strikes down closer. Open Door, the big winner, like we said, up almost 10.5%. Did take their calls into the money, but no action was taken. 850s for this week and next week are 6.5% in the money. Palo Alto Networks, the third of the four credit put spreads, dropped into the money by 0.14% today. Palantir was down 0.25%. 180s and 182.50s sold for tomorrow are 0.5% and 1.89% out of the money. So these are looking kind of sitting Goldilocks just right. Pony AI down 1.6%. Calls for this week are 3.2% out of the money, and next week are almost 8% out of the money. Quantum Computing down 3.88%. They took the win and rolled the further out of the money positions, and they still got calls expiring tomorrow about 4.5% out of the money, and ones that have already been rolled to next week 6.9% out of the money. Rigetti up 1.5% almost, already in the money and went further, now 3.4% for this week, and next week's are 1.25% out of the money. Rocket Lab down 4.23%. Calls this week are 7.2% out of the money, and next week are 15+% out of the money. Rocket Companies down 2.6%. Calls already rolled to next week, 7.5% out of the money. NewScale Power down almost 5%. They closed out the remainder for this week, and next week's calls are 14% out of the money. SoundHound down 8%. Took the win on the further out of the money positions. Still have 10%ers out of the money expiring tomorrow, and 22% out of the money for next week. Symbotic down 2.77%. Again, taking the win on the further out of the money positions. We still have calls 6.6% out of the money, and puts that are sold 12.7% out of the money. Tesla's the final of the four credit put spreads. All four are now in the money, which is not good. So we would like them to go up tomorrow. But they're only 0.38% in the money. Unity Software down about 5.25%. All positions rolled. Upstart down over 6%. This week's positions have now been rolled. And next week we have calls that are 12.4 and 14% out of the money. So that is how we had a result of $75+ million decrease in our value of our shares. Assets under management at the start of the day, $3.4 billion. Yesterday, 6 million new shares were purchased, adding to the outstanding shares, bringing it up over 620 million. The NAV at the start of the day was 551 because that already took into account the money being set aside for the distribution. So really, we were down about 6 cents today. All right, and tomorrow we will be getting that. This was last week's. Tomorrow we'll be getting 9.21 cents per share. All right, we're going to transition to SLTY. Maybe we'll do LFGY before SLTY. They're a little bit more popular. Didn't mean to do that. All right, starting off, LFGY. No shares traded, just a bunch of options. So they used to do this a lot. When they just do small portions, I don't speak about them line by line. But if a full position has been closed and rolled, then I'll draw attention to it. The first being Circle, closing and rolling to next week, resulted in a $103,000 credit. Next we had Mara, closing and rolling to next week, $176,000 credit. Same thing with PayPal and XYZ, rolling to next week, resulted in credits of just under $56,000 and just under $83,000. So all in all, the rest of them combined, it was a $442,000 credit on the options trading day, so we have had no negatives so far all week, but that's generally because your share prices are dropping, so that's not always the best. And today is no different. Down 8.7 million on our share values of our underlyings. So we go through, we take a look. Bitmine was down almost 5%. Calls are already rolled the next week, 16.5% out of the money. BitDeer down 5.4%. Expiring tomorrow are 11.6% out of the money. CleanSpark down 5.3%. They expire tomorrow. They're now just about 6% out of the money. Coinbase down 4.69%. These have already been rolled to next week, 9.2% out of the money. Core Scientific down an even 1%. They expire tomorrow, 3.9% out of the money. Circle Internet Group down 5.25%. These options got closed and rolled today. iShares Ethereum Trust ETF down almost 6% today. That one hurts. These have already been rolled and they are just about 15% out of the money. Galaxy Digital down 6.34%. Still in play for tomorrow, down about 9% out of the money. GameStop down 3.66%, expiring tomorrow, 6.7% out of the money. Robinhood down 3.27%. These expire tomorrow, 4.3% out of the money. Hut 8 Corp down 7.87%. These have already been rolled the next week and they are 26% out of the money. iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF, no options traded, just the shares themselves. They dropped 3.6%. Mara Holdings was the big loser today, dropping 8.9%. All the positions were closed and rolled for that. MBTX, we don't own any shares, but we have a credit call spread and a debit put spread that dropped today, made this 280, 8.2% out of the money, and then these 255s that are purchased puts for the end of the year are now 1.3% out of the money. So that value will increase by a nice amount tomorrow. Mercado Libre down 0.75%. They expire tomorrow, 2.3% out of the money. Strategy down almost 7%. Already rolled to next week, 13% out of the money. NU Holdings down 1.4%. These expire tomorrow, 4.5% out of the money. NVIDIA, call it the big winner. It's just the only winner, the only positive in the whole bunch, up 0.41%. And of course, these are in the money. What are the odds? But 1.5% in the money, expiring tomorrow. Opera down 2%. These are already rolled to the middle of next month, 6.4 and 11.7% out of the money. PayPal was down 1.6%. These got rolled today. Riot was down almost 7%. 19s expiring tomorrow are 13.5% out of the money. And finally, Block was down 3.66%, and those options were rolled today. Assets under management at the start of the day was just under 191 million. No change in shares, 5,275,000. The NAV at the start of the day, 36.21. That was a rough drop as far as that goes. But we will be getting a little over 51 cents. I can't remember exactly what the number was. But all right, and finally we have not that. SLTY. Excuse me, I need a drink. All right, they started off by selling short more shares within the fund. Astera, Bloom, Circle, Mara, Duolingo. I'm not sure why that didn't come up as the whole word. Enphase, GitLab, Lemonade, RH, Symbotic, Tempest AI, BitDeer, and Nebius Group. So that brought in a decent chunk of money. We don't include that in our options trading numbers, but that brought in 2.8 million. And then for the most part, so if you short more shares, you're going to start more reverse collar strategies on them. So that's everything with the exception of the orange. Those are closeouts and rolls to next week. So A-Lab brought in $4,900, Bloom Energy $3,400 credit, BitDeer $780 credit, Rolling Circle actually cost us $51,000. Rolling Duolingo had a credit of $8,800. And then this is just more reverse collar strategy. Enphase brought in $4,100. GitLab brought in $2,100. Now we're back to rolling. Lemonade cost us $24,000. Mara cost us $98,000. And then finally, just the reverse collar strategy on the remainders. Nebius brought in $4,000. RH $4,300. Symbotics $5,100. And Tempest AI $5,700 credit. So all in all, that actually cost us today $131,000 on the options trading. The big ones, Circle, Lemonade, and Mara were the ones that cost us so much. We did increase in value today because of everything going down. We went up by $349,000. All right, so going through these, Astera Labs was down 2.25%. So in this case, going down helps. So it increased our value. Looks like I forgot to change our colors here. So see if I can quickly do it as we're talking. Puts rolled till next week are 1.5% out of the money. Bloom Energy down 0.68%. Puts rolled to next week are 5.4% out of the money. Next we have BitDeer Technology down 5.4%. Puts sold for next week are 3.4% or expiring tomorrow. 3.4% out of the money, and calls are 26% out of the money. Circle Internet Group was down 5.25%. Those got rolled, and of course they were in the money, so they cost. Duolingo up 4.079%. They're the biggest increase, but that hurts because we don't want shorted shares to go up, and they went ahead and closed and rolled those positions. Enphase Energy down 2.4%. Puts expiring tomorrow are still 0.2% out of the money. GitLab was down 1%. Already rolled the next week. They're 3.6% out of the money. Lemonade down 1.82%. They got rolled, and they were already in the money. Mara Holdings was the biggest decreaser, down 8.9%. Unfortunately, the puts were already in the money, so that drop didn't help us a whole lot. It's going to increase our value, but the cost went along with it to close it out, and they did close it out today. Micron Technology down 3%. Took these into the money by 2%. Should be red. And they expire tomorrow. We got Nebius Group down 4.6%. These have already been rolled till next week, so they're 1.8% out of the money going into the next week. RH down 0.63%. They've already been rolled as well, 1.7% out of the money. We have Symbotic down 2.77%. Puts rolled already to next week are 3.98% out of the money, and Tempest AI also already rolled to next week, already 1.7% out of the money after today's 2.4% drop. So those moves are what caused our value of our shares, or of our shorted shares, to increase by $349,000. Assets under management at the start of the day, $11.7 million. No change in outstanding shares, still $275,000. The NAV at the start of the day, $42.57. So to pay out that, I think it was a 60-something cent distribution and go up to, never mind. I think I forgot to update this. Something wasn't making sense. They went up, but 43.24. So it's really not that far off. Yeah, so to pay out the distribution and still end up to 43.24 when they started the day worth 42.57, it's a pretty good day. All right, that's all I have for you. I know it was a lot of information, so thanks for hanging in there. And so now I've got a dad joke of the day for you. All right. Now, before I do, though, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Sorry, I know I'm low energy. My voice is messed up. Just trying to get through it. But just trying to deliver the information on your investments. So, Dad joke of the day. How do you tell the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? You will see one later and one in a while. I get it, but it's not that funny. All right, have a good night. Good luck trading tomorrow. Don't forget, tomorrow's your last day of the week, so if you got options expiring, don't forget to close them or roll them, whatever you got to do. Have a good night and catch you in the next video.